me, Paul Ross. It's Talk Radio on the Late Early Show. And now two things. One is I love to shop. The other is I'm probably the oldest man in this building, as I grew up in the late 60s, teenager in the 70s, and I had a high street, a Leytonstone High Street in North East London. It was throbbing, it was vibrant, it was busy, it had small shops, big shops, chain stores. It's still there, because my son lives over in that part of London now with his sons, but actually it's different. It's got lots of charity shops, nothing wrong with them, lots of bookmakers, less certain about those, and lots of shops that are empty. It looks like a set of teeth with some of the teeth knocked out. It's not pretty, and I wonder if that's going to be the future of the high street, or if we can turn that around. Now, we all know the high street's facing challenges. What can we do to help it? They're going through their busy quarter now. We hope and pray there won't be job losses in the new year. Maybe there will be. What can we do to revive the high street? Let's get the thoughts now of tip-top consumer expert from that great organisation, Insight with Passion, Kate Hardcastle, MBE. Welcome to the Late Early Show, and thank you for doing this for us, Kate. Good morning.
No problem. It's great to speak to you.
Now, first of all, let me be brutal. Can we get the shopping consumer defibrillator on the high street and revive it? Or have we got to accept it's going to change and maybe disappear?
Well, you're right to point out that it's at resuscitation levels because it's very serious. And it's been borne out of a lot of things that have changed recently, not least online shopping has taken over 20% of the way we shop. But there is hope. There are green shoots. It's just about being very realistic with what the future looks like. And unfortunately, a lot of people involved with the retail industry, and that's everyone from the stakeholders, the retailers themselves, particularly some of the bigger retailers and the local authorities, just don't seem to have the pace of change, the ambition and the innovation that's needed to be able to get it to the next point of its life cycle.
I mean, the one thing you don't get online, of course, is interaction. And I'm a big charity shopper. Where I'm living at the moment, there's a wonderful RSPCA shop. The staff there are friendly. They know me. They'll even occasionally put stuff aside if I think it's a book I might like or a CD. And it's that personal thing you don't get online. Is that the key to this, that interaction, do you think?
Well, service is a huge part of it, but I'd go a little bit deeper than that. We're currently suffering from an isolation crisis, a loneliness crisis, in more than just the over 50s, actually. This isn't just an older person's issue. This is young people too. And I think what we've done, tip enough hat to, pay enough respect to, is the fact that sometimes just a friendly hello, just an engagement by buying something a traditional way or the coffee shop is probably just enough companionship as we need to get through days sometimes. And that's where the high streets and those traditional centres and communities have served us. They've helped me as a mum, a young mum, just not really knowing what I was doing and being really tired and just looking for a friendly face to smile at me and give me a bit of reassurance. And that walk through a town centre can mean so much to so many people. And yet, unfortunately, training standards in customer service and the amount of people on the floors are all being reduced. So this is generally an area where businesses are pulling back rather than investing in. It doesn't make sense to me because I think that's a natural plus point of what traditional retail can offer versus online.
I wonder if one of the positive signs going forward is the move we seem to have made away from those out-of-town retail parks, which were all like identikits. They'd have the big supermarket, whatever one it was, they'd have a big shoe store, they might have a kind of household store, they'd have a Frankie and Benny's, maybe a cinema, and they were drawing footfall away from the high street. Now, those seem to be less popular, and we seem to want to go back almost to kind of niche shopping, if that makes sense. Am I reading too much into that, or is that an important, possibly positive move forward?
No, you're definitely right to say that there's green shoots in independent retail, in smaller community centres. One of the big things that's going to have to change is there's going to have to be a 20-30% reduction in the space that retail took in traditional high streets and on out-of-town shopping parks. And some of that's going to be taken over, I hope, by sensible things like residential and medical centres and children's care centres. But in out-of-town parks, it's normally food and beverage units and indoor golf and 10-pin bowling and activities because we want to do more things. We want to experience life more. If we're going to be realistic about that reduction and that retail isn't the hero in these places anymore, it's just part of the mix, then we have to make sure that the actual offer is appealing and that we'll still have those out-of-town parks because people like the convenience. That parking is such a big issue, Paul. I can't even begin to stress it. It's completely taken people out of town centres because they're fearful of a traffic warden, they're fearful of big fines, they're worried about, overcharging. So that's been a big issue. And out of town offered, normally a free of charge parking, you drive straight up to the store. And we see that model in America and Australia a lot. So we have to be very realistic about the changes we need to make. We need to be realistic that this isn't just going to be a retail place to visit. It's going to be a multiple social retail occasion. But most of all, we have to have a fit for purpose. Each place is going to have a different set of people that want different things from it. So you can't carbon copy this, and that's what happened with retail. Retail looked over the shoulder too much and said, right, what are they doing? Let's copy that, let's copy that. A retail park in one place isn't necessarily going to be the right fit for somewhere else because there's different demographics, we have different earnings, and we want different things from places we shop and live. And it's got to be that local element that makes each place good.
And in fact, you've reminded me of something I've not thought of probably for 20 years now. Back in the 90s, I was on that show, The Big Breakfast, and I did about 6 months on the road for them. So it was initially Mark Lamar, Where Are You, Mark? After me, it was Keith Chegwin. And for about 6 months, it was Where Are You, Paul? Every day, we would pop up 5 days a week in a different part of the country. So we would drive from Cornwall to Carlisle, from Edinburgh to Exeter, somewhere different. And after a while, and, we'd get there kind of middle of the afternoon, we'd wander out, we'd find something to eat, whatever. And after a while, I thought, Britain's turning into this kind of identikit shopping market because a lot of them were pedestrianised, and I can understand why that might be, but they all had the kind of the Dulces, the Freeman Hardy and Willis, they had, say, Jessop's for the photographs, they all had a Next, and they all had the same kind of stores, and those smaller individual stores that you would make almost a, when I was a kid, there was a gift shop run, small record store, those disappeared. Is that important to somehow try and revive?
Absolutely right again. It's got to be about this blend, and where independent retailers are being successful, it's because of their local expertise and knowledge. It doesn't really matter if it's a butcher, a baker, or even a local art shop. It's the fact that they care about what they do, they know what they do. I've got to give a huge shout out to a lot of the independent retailers. I do a lot of voluntary work with them. And one thing I know is actually this isn't a very profitable, healthy business to be in. A lot of them are just scraping a living. Yeah. But they do it because they're really driven by the fact that they love the place to live and they want to enhance the place to live. And they work together. When these independent businesses work together, you get even more harmony. You get even more exciting towns and city centres because they want to put events on and they want to make it good for the people who live there. The identicate, what I call the vanilla high street, was certainly part of the problem. The biggest part of the problem was too many stakeholders wanted to make too much money. They wanted to cash in. We had retailers overcharging, under-delivering, making it very much about what they could charge, opening hours that didn't suit the public anymore, and not great customer service, and actually not great products a lot of the time. So we had local authorities who wanted to make sure they got their rates out of it, as did landlords wanting the rentals out of it. Everyone was about the financial, and everyone forgot about the most important person, who's the customer, the visitor, the user, the you and I. And we need so much more from this, and that's going to require not just one person with a magic wand, but a hell of a lot of people working together, realising that and actually putting themselves into the shoes of the consumer, creating something for them rather than just creating something to make a profit. That can't be the starting point anymore.
It's interesting you mentioned parking because it's only a week or so ago I had to buy something in a chemist's and I drove into my nearest shopping centre. It's an Into centre, and the minimum parking charge was £2, and I'm a relatively mean person. We've got to watch the pennies, and I remember the time thinking, hang on, I'm driving here to park here to spend my money here, and there's absolutely no facilities in this car park, and there's nobody patrolling it, and yet they're stinging me for an extra £2 on the top. And at the time I remember thinking, next time I might get the bus or walk in or go somewhere else, which isn't charging me a kind of top-up fee. And maybe that's a part of the... I mean, we don't validate parking in this country, do we? I think the way they do in the States. Or are people starting to do that now?
Yeah, I think that people are reviewing it. They've heard the comments so many times. But I first started talking, media wasn't my born place in life, in a career. I was a geek in an office who was working very much on creating commercially aware businesses and putting the customer at the heart of them. I was very happy doing that. And media came along because I made some comments in 2009 about the state of the high street because there was 25% shop closures. And I was the person saying, no, it's not natural. It doesn't have to be like this. It needs to evolve rather than just be a disaster. And I've been trying to make those comments ever since. But parking was brought up then, so that's a decade. So I guess my point is, you're right, but how long is it going to take for someone to actually start doing something? Yeah. We can't just keep looking at European models saying, well, that works. We maybe try that on a Tuesday afternoon. We've got to completely change this quickly because the big thing that will happen is people are behaviourally, they behave in patterns and they will continue to move away, and it'll be harder to bring them back if we don't give them something that they actually see and want to go to.
No, I saw you recently on that ITV show, the Tonight documentary, when you met up with Jake Berry, the Minister for High Streets. And I suppose it's encouraging we've got a Minister for High Streets, but is the government doing enough? Is the government doing the right kind of thing, do you think, Kate?
Absolutely not, no. It was an interesting meeting because we've had 5 High Street ministers in 6 years. And I don't think that a busy MP with lots of different things on their job list to do can give the high street the attention it deserves.
Yeah.
On a day like today, our government's been wholly occupied by something else. It's just not going to be a priority. But because of the huge change in the way that we're buying and shopping and the growth and the surge of online, the problem is hourly almost. So I think there needs to be a hit team, but a hit team delivered to do action, not just create more reports. We've got lots of reports. They're very good. So we need to get out there and make a difference.
And tell us a bit about Insight with Passion, if you would. What do you do with that?
Well, I'm incredibly passionate about it. We've been going nearly 10 years, and we try and advise businesses in a different way. We also give a day week back, and that's where I've built a lot of this knowledge, actually, because the day week back we give to startups and micro businesses. And that's helped over 1,000 small businesses for free to actually work out if they can be a retailer and what that might look like and how to keep the shop doors open. So it's absolutely brilliant. The nicest thing other than, creating some kind of living is having, a lot of businesses that we've made the difference for that have been able to build the type of businesses in the community we talked about. Unfortunately, only in Yorkshire at this point. Our commercial business is international, but the Give Back's only been in Yorkshire. But 1,000 businesses is no small means feat.
It's brilliant stuff. And I've been reading about what you've been up to at the moment. You've been working with a traditional school uniform provider, giving them creative ideas and maybe a more flexible approach to what they do. What have you advised those people to do? What are they up to?
Well, if I can mention, it's actually True Text, which is probably a name that a lot of us will remember from old.
Absolutely.
And they're trying to create, they're over 100 years old, and they're trying to create a life themselves as a school uniform provider, not at the most discounted price, because a lot of the supermarkets are in that industry now. And you don't want a brand like that to disappear because they're brilliant in what they do and they've got a great history. So it's how do you modernise a brand like that? How do you create new things for them? And one of the things we've done is we've realised that 1 in 2 children will suffer bullying from one point of their school life to another. So we're trying to create the uniform to be more intelligent so that it can help the child feel more inclusive. And there's lots of technology down the road that I don't want to talk about just yet, but that even includes simple things like the liner of the blazer being written with lots of empowering messages so that you can just feel you're putting a bit of a coat of armour in the morning to go to school. And it's the same philosophy every time. Whatever product it is, it's trying to put the customer in the heart of the business, trying to go a day in the life of their shoes, go in their shoes for a day in the life of them, and try and work out how we can improve things for them, make things better. Because businesses should be profitable, but businesses most of all should be respectful to the people who put them where they are.
And I suppose stitched into the fabric of people's lives. Kate, I love your passion. I appreciate your insights. The organisation's called Insight with Passion. If you search for them, you'll find out what they're up to. And that was the wonderful Kate Hardcastle, MBE, talking to me, Paul Ross, about the great British High Street. Long may it prevail.